You know, it's a shame that there isn't a well-defined or reliable catalog that keeps track of how often a song has been covered. According to Guinness, as of 2018, the most covered individual score was 1935's Summertime by George Gershwin. That world record cites whosampled.com, which now lists Summertime as the 7th most covered, losing the top spot to fellow jazz standard Caravan, originally from 1937. The popularly believed most covered song, The Beatles' Yesterday, is actually sitting pretty at number 2. There's a bit of a problem with the reliability of this information, however. Who Sampled lists Gene Austen's The Lonesome Road as being covered only 13 times, gently prodding the ethereal blackness of yet another internet rabbit hole proves very quickly that this is incorrect. Not only has The Lonesome Road been directly covered obscenely more than 13 times, it is also the starting point of a musical tradition that evolved through consistent reworking in African American musical communities over several decades. Let's dig in.
Well, here's a little song that I wrote, Matt. This is one I wrote for Showboat. Look down, that long road back before you travel on. Look up.
The Lonesome Road represents a powerhouse team-up between Texas-born lyricist Gene Austen and composer Nathaniel Shilkret, the son of immigrants from what is now Ukraine. I know this is incredibly difficult to believe living in a world where popular musicians are revered as minor gods of major pantheons, but these two people you and I had never heard of before today were the equivalent of David Bowie in late 1920s America.
Let me out.
They also have a hilariously old man style origin story. Shilkret was a musical director at what later became RCA Victor, where he first encountered this vaudeville actor demonstrating a song called When My Sugar Walks Down the Street, in the hopes that Victor would buy the rights and give it to one of their signed artists for a recorded release. Shilkret liked the performer, Gene Austen's voice, so much that he asked why the singer hadn't been recorded yet. To which Austen revealed that he had auditioned for Victor twice and been rejected both times. Shilkret eventually gave the song to Eileen Stanley, one of America's first pop stars, and omitted Austen's name from the label.
I know a thing or two, and I'm a-telling you, I've got a wonderful pal.
After the recording had been completed, Shilkret's superiors called, demanding that the male vocalist accompanying Stanley be signed at once. The producer recalls in his autobiography, with the sly corner smile of a career grandpa, that he asked them why they were in such a hurry after turning him down twice. Wink. The pair worked together a few times thereafter. Shilkret was a producer on Austen's 1928 hit My Blue Heaven, which was at one time the best-selling record in American history. It was not unseated until Bing Crosby topped the chart with White Christmas in 1942, where it still sits today.
How about you knocking along? Come on and do it with us.
Austen's success was partially due to his distinct vocal style. He was one of the earliest crooners, establishing his voice as something dynamic yet intimate. At the time, this style of performance, being etched into something you could play whenever you wanted, was groundbreaking.
You're knocking, but you can't come in. You stayed away too long.
In short, Gene Austen ran so Frank Sinatra could fly. In 1927, Austen had penned The Lonesome Road. The lyrics, with their short refrains of simple phrases, echo what was then an actively evolving American tradition, the African American folk song. Contemporary to Austen's work in New York City, railroads throughout the southern United States were being built and maintained by groups of black men. These songs were sung among groups of both the culturally osmosed chain gang, think title sequence of Oh Brother Where Art Thou, and the railroad-employed maintenance crews that came to be known as Gandy dancers.
My grandma put a roll on me, one was blind and one could see. My grandma put a roll on me, he don't buy that line, oh buy that line, oh buy that line, oh buy that line.
Often performed by a lead vocalist who would sing short phrases to be repeated by the rest of the voices present, the railroad songs of the South came to be the root of the American folk genre, a style inextricably linked to the Southern and black experiences. Gene Austen, who grew up in Texas and Louisiana, was definitely familiar with this style of music. Though he had lived on the East Coast after returning to the States from the First World War, Austin had been a native Southerner from birth until sometime after his first stationing in the U.S. Army at age 15, which was in New Orleans, by the way. The Lonesome Road stands out from the rest of Austin's catalog for two reasons. One, the style of the Railroadmen had not been influential on Austin's prior recordings, and two, it is one of the few songs Austin not only performed, but wrote. Austin's intimate performance style is present on The Lonesome Road, where he is accompanied by a low-key piano melody and the moaning of a cello.
Weary toad and such a load, vegging down that lonesome road.
As an individual piece of musical anthropology, the song is an enigma. Imagine Dean Martin writing and performing Buck Owens' Under Your Spell Again. It's madness. But not only did it happen, it ended up being readopted by communities that grew out of the communities that inspired it.
That's gay!
The web of history is vast and unending, and beating at its heart with the intensity of the sun itself is a spinning record with the words "The Lonesome Road" written on it. The first cover recorded on Who Sampled is from 1931, a record featuring Louis Armstrong improvising not through scat or trombone, but as a character. Armstrong performs a preacher approaching members of his congregation at the end of a service, while The Lonesome Road plays on as the closing hymn. He presents the offering plate to them expectantly, with an exaggerated accent occasionally peering around the corner.
Drop it in there, brother Jack Randall. I thank you. Now, how to do, brother Brunson? And brother Randall?
At one point, a man doing what sounds like a cartoon foil tells Brother Armstrong that he doesn't have his dollar money yet, to which Louis quickly remarks, "You'd better go home." This isn't the first cover of The Lonesome Road, which would have seen wide circulation and success by 1931. So wide that it had become something of a jazz standard. In those days, with vaudeville and road entertainers so outnumbering artists who had access to any way of recording their work, a song's circulation was driven by how performable it was, how it worked in a live setting. The spread of recorded music allowed these traveling entertainers to hear firsthand what was popular with the money-spending public. What many of them found when they heard Austin's song was something that they had been hearing for years. The original recording of The Lonesome Road fuses Austin's distinct vocal style with a songwriting tradition that was already familiar to America's Southerners, and particularly its black Southerners. He was doing it in a more operatic way, but the core of the song was what the Gandy dancers had been doing for decades. The song was simple, with only 3 parts. It left a lot of room on which one could improvise or extend a performance that might be doing particularly well with a crowd. These traveling musicians and performers, many of whom were black, took to performing The Lonesome Road in their own ways. Covering the song before equipment to preserve and archive these stylistic shifts was widely available. As they traveled, a giant game of telephone began where slowly, the song morphed into completely different forms. Forms like Louis Armstrong's complete reinvention of the song's context. The Lonesome Road stands as this anomaly of a cultural artifact, fusing what would become the crooner tradition that dominated the American music scene with black roots that helped make up its foundation. It marries incredibly different traditions into one melancholy piece of music that sounds like what whipping your head out of a van in the dead of night somewhere in the middle of a flyover state's cornfields feels like. So how often has The Lonesome Road been covered? There's no definitive way to say, though I feel confident in telling you it is a number that is higher than 13. It is a number that is high enough to see a song evolve into something people inherently knew and could perform in such a way that their own personalities and histories would get grafted onto it. I also feel confident that I can tell you this. Black Southerners walked so Gene Austin could run, so Frank Sinatra could fly. And, of course, as this is a channel you probably subscribe to because you like video games, this entire essay started when I realized that despite being the name of a narratively formidable piece of additional content for the already girthy storytelling of Fallout New Vegas, Lonesome Road is one of the referenced songs that does not appear on the game's soundtrack. As I wandered, lonely as a cloud, through the internet, discovering this fact sent me down the trail of learning a bit about the song, and now, dear friends, you know a little bit about it too. Don't say video games never taught you nothing.